All right, we have a few more people filtering in, so we'll give it one more minute. All right, just as a reminder, we will be recording Gordon's portion of the workshop, but once we become interactive, we would like everybody to interact, sorry, and we won't record that part, or if we forget to turn off the recording, we will simply edit out that part. So you can feel free to really engage. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Gordon Meade. Gordon's an established poet who examines the complex relationships between humans and other than human animals. He's the author of numerous collections, including Zoospeak and Exposed Animal Elegies. Gordon served as a creative writing fellow, a writer in residence, and a workshop facilitator, focusing on creative writing workshops aimed at vulnerable youth. Gordon creates poems that challenge our notions of what it means to be animal and forces us to rethink our treatment of individuals from a variety of species. We are so delighted that Gordon can join us today to share his work and his passions. Welcome, Gordon.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I just start then?
Go ahead.
Okay. Right, well, what I'm going to do this afternoon, first of all, I'm going to read for about maybe 20, 25 minutes from the two collections that Michelle mentioned, and 3 poems from a new one I'm working on called The Resurrectionists, which looks at de-extinction from the point of view of non-human animals. And after that, have a little time for questions if there are any, then maybe a 5-minute break, and then we'll start the workshop for anyone that's interested in taking part in that. So I don't have any slides this time. I decided not to show the photographs this time, but to say a little about them, and to say a little about how they influenced each of the poems and what I was trying to do with the poems, and more with the poems and Exposed, what the photographs made me do. We'll look at that come the time. The first poem I'd like to read is called Malayan Sun Bear, Thailand, 2008. It's not the first poem in Zoospeak, but it's the first poem from that collection that I wrote. And the poems came from me looking at Joanne MacArthur's photographs in her book Captive, which looked at, obviously, animals in captivity. And this first photograph is in black and white, and it's of a sun bear with its right paw pressed up against the glass of its cage. And there's condensation on the glass, and there's almost a window within the window that you can see the sun bear. And to me, it looked a bit ghostly, and that's where the first image comes from. I am just one of the ghosts that you are like to see here, if you are willing to look. I'm just one of the ghosts that you are likely to see here, if you are willing to look past the sheet of glass. I'm just one of the ghosts that you are likely to see here, if you are willing to look past the sheet of glass that separates us. I have. I'm just one of the ghosts that you are likely to see here, if you are willing to look past the sheet of glass that separates us. I have raised my right paw. I am just one of the ghosts that you are likely to see here, if you are willing to look past the sheet of glass that separates us. I have raised my right paw and placed it against the pane. I am just one of the ghosts that you are likely to see here, if you're willing to look past the sheet of glass that separates us. I have raised my right paw and placed it against the pane. Look into my eyes, my gaze. I am just one of the ghosts that you are likely to see here, if you're willing to look past the sheet of glass that separates us. I have raised my right paw and placed it against the pane. Look into my eyes. My gaze can cut right through it. So with this first poem, there's very little going on within the poem apart from what is going on in the photograph. I suppose the image of the ghost is the only introduction of any sort of imagination working, apart from perhaps at the end with the look into my eyes, my gaze can cut right through it. What interested me and what came with the writing of these poems was the form of the repetition, how each stanza has another line added to it. And this was initially quite unconscious, but then became a conscious effort on my part to try and mirror the experience of animals in captivity, especially in zoos. They go through this monotonous behavior, either scratching themselves, biting themselves, or going round and round in a particular circle within their cages. And this is where the repetition came in. I was also very aware of trying to keep the poems in the present tense to try and keep that intensity of it happening in the here and now. This next poem is more conversational in that the brown bear in Germany 2008 has something to say to us humans. The photograph is of a bear standing up on its hind legs, staring through the wire mesh of its cage. I'm aware of what you are, and I'm also aware of what you are thinking. You're a human being. I'm aware of what you are, and I'm also aware of what you are thinking. You are a human being, and you are thinking, I am something else. I'm aware of what you are, and I'm also aware of what you are thinking. You are a human being, and you are thinking, I am something else, put here for your entertainment. I'm aware of what you are, and I'm also aware of what you are thinking. You are a human being, and you are thinking, I am something else, put here for your entertainment. That makes it easier for you to ignore me. I'm aware of what you are, put here for your entertainment. That makes it easier for you to ignore me and the wire mesh that surrounds me. I'm aware of what you are, and I'm also aware of what you are thinking. You are a human being, and you are thinking, I am something else, put here for your entertainment. That makes it easier for you to ignore me and the wire mesh that surrounds me, the wire mesh that separates us. I'm aware of what you are, and I am also aware of what you are thinking. You are a human being, and you are thinking, I am something else, put here for your entertainment. That makes it easier for you to ignore me and the wire mesh that surrounds me, the wire mesh that separates us and your way of thinking from mine. So I say in that poem, there's more of a voice to the animal. And of course, this is one of the problems writing for animals or trying to write as animals. You come up against the dreaded anthropomorphism, which is something that I've been struggling with throughout my writing career. There's a quote from an American poet, Dorian Locks, who said that all writing is a rubbing up between the external reality and the internal reality. And I think that's very valid. And I think I let myself off with the anthropomorphism in that way, that my internal reality is that of a human. The external reality that I'm trying to touch is that of the animal. The next poem It's called Pileated Gibbon, France 2016. And this is, again, it's of a gibbon, and there's more, again, there's more human, there's more spirituality in this poem, because the gibbon looks as if it's almost looking out of a window, but the way it's sitting is almost in a full lotus Buddha meditation pose. As you come upon me, I am seated almost cross-legged, with my arms folded. Not quite. As you come upon me, I am seated almost cross-legged, with my arms folded. Not quite the full lotus, but very nearly. As you come upon me, I am seated almost cross-legged, with my arms folded. Not quite the full lotus, but very nearly in the shape and form of one. As you come upon me, I am seated almost cross-legged, with my arms folded, not quite the full lotus, but very nearly in the shape and form of one of your spiritual icons, Buddha. As you come upon me, I am seated almost cross-legged, with my arms folded, not quite the full lotus, but very nearly in the shape and form of one of your spiritual icons, a Buddha in fur, with my eyes both open. As you come upon me, I am seated, almost cross-legged, with my arms folded, not quite the full lotus, but very nearly in the shape and form of one of your spiritual icons, a Buddha in fur, with my eyes both open and closed, focused and relaxed. As you come upon me, I am seated almost cross-legged, with my arms folded, not quite the full lotus, but very nearly in the shape and form of one of your spiritual icons, a Buddha in fur, with my eyes both open and closed, focused and relaxed. Here I am, and here I am not. So I'm going to move on now to the book Exposed, Animal Elegies, which was a different project altogether. And whereas I felt I coped better with the Zoospeak, with the Zoospeak images, captive images, rather than the images in Joe's next book, Hidden, which looked at all different forms of abuse to animals through factory farming, entertainment, religion, factory fishing. So lots of stuff. And so the poems became almost an escape for me, and the form became very simple, very pared back, because I didn't really want to, in some ways I didn't really want to invade the image on the page. So I'm only going to read, they're short poems, I'm only going to read 4 of them. And the first one, the photograph is of a guardian, Aura, grooming a rescued chimpanzee at an Agamba Island sanctuary. And it's just the human's 2 hands enveloping the chimpanzee's 1 hand. And the poem is the first one in the book, and it's called In the Beginning. And the photograph was taken by Joanne McCarthy. In the beginning, we are fur, we are fin, we are skin, we are scale. We are wing, we are feather, we are common, we are rare. We are plain, we are mountain, we are ocean, we are mire. We are earth, we are wind, we are water, we are fire. So it's poems, all the poems are like that sort of almost sing-song format, uses rhyme, off rhyme quite a lot, and just to sort of pare things down, because for me the images in the book are just so startling. The second one was taken by Aaron Gakowski at a restaurant in Phnom Penh. I really like his work as well. I think it is very beautiful but very brutal. And this photograph is of a dog carcass lying in a bucket of water ready to be cooked, and the bucket is circular. The photograph is taken from the top of it, looking down on the dog, and the water is bloodied, so it's red. Dog. I am missing. I am stolen. I am kith. I am kin. I am water. I am blood. I am flesh. I am skin. I am devotion. I am forgiveness. I am loyal to a fault. I am flayed. I am butchered. I am seasoned. I am salt. And the next poem, photographs taken by Juan de la Mala in Indonesia, and it's of a macaque performing in a popular street show in Jakarta, known locally as Topeng Monye, masked monkey. And the macaque is dressed in a red suit. It has a sort of quite grotesque mask on its face and a yellow and green top hat on its head. And it is obviously it's chained. Macaque. I am beggar. I am tramp. I am hobo. I am scamp. I'm sight. I'm sound. I am dancer. I am bound. I am hatted. I am masked. I am suited. I am trained. I am hidden. I am beaten. I am starved. I am chained. And as I say, all the images were very striking, and it was difficult to think of one that could end the book. So eventually, I chose one that seemed to be the antithesis of the first poem. It was quite positive in my view, showing a connection between us and non-human animals. And this last one again was taken by Joanne MacArthur in Israel, and it's a photograph of ear tags and bones next to a quarantine site. And it's called At the End. At the end, we are branded, we are numbered, we are barcodes, we are tags. We are shackled, we are prodded, we are driven, we are dragged. We are slashed, we are clubbed, we are bludgeoned, we are stunned. We are skinned, we are gutted, we are drawn, we are hung. So I'm going to read 3 poems from a book that I'm working on at the moment called The Resurrectionists, as I said, and it's about, well, it certainly looks at de-extinction, which seems to be becoming quite popular, trending, they might say. And when I first found out about it, it struck me as being very science fiction. But the more I read into it and about it, it seemed to be something that has quite a lot of money behind it at the moment and is becoming a reality. The way I work, say a little about that. But if it is something I don't know much about, and I don't know much, I didn't know much about animal captivity, I didn't know much about animal abuse, and I don't know much about de-extinction. But what I do is I read around the subject, but I try not to take on too much of it, of what I've read, so that it allows my imagination to move about. And these poems, it's almost a science fiction poetry book. And there's a preface I'd like to read, and then the 3 poems. Preface is The Vanishing, and the poems are written in the future. As we approached the midpoint of the 21st century, we found ourselves living in a world, and in a way of living within that world that no more than half a century before we would never have imagined possible. Almost all our fellow creatures had been lost, and after what would be called the vanishing, a number of scientists who called themselves the Resurrectionists took it upon themselves to attempt to reintroduce a number of the planet's lost creatures, using the rapidly developing art and science of gene editing. Written in the 4th quadrant, Northern Europe, 2087. The not-so-woolly mammoth. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that you took a few strands, or is it spirals, of my DNA from the tusk of a well-preserved corpse in the Siberian tundra. Then you mixed them up, or is it entangled them with those of an Indian elephant? Implanted in another elephant's womb, we both waited until it was time for me to come. When I did, it was, to begin with, nothing more or less than a miracle. A hirsute female calf, the spitting image of those you had seen daubed on the cave walls at Lascaux. In time, unfortunately, my hair began to fall out. Too much elephant, I guess, and not enough mammoth. In the end, I didn't survive that long. And anyway, by the time I was an adolescent, I was already completely bald and totally grey. The next poem is called The Synthetic Eel. First, the Sargasso Sea fills up with microplastics, and then so do we. And then you just cannot wait to see if there is something you can try to do to bring us back from the brink of extinction. It is hard for you to eliminate the atoms of plastic from the DNA you extracted from our olive skin. And it is even harder still to find an acceptable host for what remains. In the end, you plump for an electric. Not really an eel at all, more a sort of catfish, and yet somehow it takes. And the resulting elvers do manage to light up a little corner of the ocean for a while. It looked, however, that there was still too much plastic in the mix. Sometimes it seems that no matter how hard you try, nor for how long you wish, the course of extinction just cannot be fixed. So the book sort of it follows the exploits of these rogue group of scientists, the Resurrectionists, and the last section looks at how I think it might extend itself into using the human, and these are quite fanciful poems towards the end about what the Resurrectionists would do with human DNA and the merging of two different human entities. The poem I'm going to read is At the World's End. There's a pub at the World's End in Camden. There's also one in Edinburgh. It's references there. And the two humans involved in this experiment are Jim Morrison and Janis Joplin. His essence has always been hard to pin down. Some of it was found in the dog's abandoned bow, some on the skin of a Komodo dragon, some in a hypo filled to the brim with skunk, and the rest in a lukewarm bath in an apartment in Paris. Hers was quite similar, both of them having been members of the infamous 27 Club. Hers was scattered along the length of the West Coast, from Monterey to Hollywood. Some was extracted from a piece of her heart, some from the edge of a hotel table, and the rest from the dregs of a half-empty glass. Implanted into the womb of a senior lecturer in quantum physics, her son refused to ever try to become an academic and ended up instead tending bar at the World's End. Thank you for listening. If anyone's got any questions about the poem, about the poems, about the reading, or whatever, feel free to ask them now, and we'll see how that goes. If there aren't any, I think we'll have a, let's say, have a 5-minute break, and then we'll start the workshop.
And feel free, everyone, to open up your mic and ask in person. We won't be using the Padlet